All right. Oh, let's get this done quick, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Formula Yap. Yes, that's right. Just two dudes yapping mostly about Formula One. I'm Elbert,
And I'm your boy Kevin.
and this week is we're talking Baku, which is in about 7 hours. So I'm not saying it's another speed run, but we're gonna run it down quick here. Just stuff that we're looking forward to, and just this week and stuff around the just chit chat around the paddock that we're gonna chat up. So let's get right into the preview. Let's get right into it. Right, both championships are both championships back on. I think that's the main question that everyone's gonna be asking as we head into uh the race this week. Um, Lando Norris. So if we look at driver standings, Norris is what 62 points behind Max Verstappen in the World Drivers' Championship with 8 races left to go, I believe. And then if we head into the Constructors' Championship, 3 teams, Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari, are all pretty much have a fighting chance here. Red Bull lead McLaren by just 8 points heading into this weekend, with Ferrari about 30 points behind McLaren. So this could go any which way. Let's start with the Drivers' Championship, actually. Kev, like I said,
Yeah,
Lando, 62 points behind Max Verstappen. 8 races left to go. So the math does work out for him. The math could work out for him. But the real question, I think, is Lando Norris ready for a title fight? I mean, we saw what happened last week in Monza, the papaya, with the whole debacle around team orders, papaya rules, blah, 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 blah. Do we think Lando is, and McLaren, I guess for that matter, with the World Constructors Championship, do you think McLaren and Lando are ready for a title fight?
yeah. So, do I think that do I think that they have a chance? Do I think they have a chance? Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. Let's start with the pros that they have in common. So first off, let's give our fans some context of what's going on. Adrian Newey, the main designer for the Red Bull car, is out. If you want an explanation for why the car has suddenly dropped in performance dramatically, it's because the main brain behind the operation, Adrian Newey, has recently decided he's no longer going to continue with Red Bull. And this past week, it was announced that the person who snatched him over was none other than F1 sugar daddy Stroll, Lawrence Stroll of Aston Martin. He's the one who snatched him up. And so that's why there's been a decrease, right? The team knows this, and I think they finally have figured out um, how to get past that stump. At least it feels like they are now starting to pick up again. What does McLaren have going for them? It's that Red Bull is still kind of struggling, and it's not the same strong Red Bull that we saw at the beginning of the season. Checo had major slumps and uh, has continued to have major slumps. A positive that Another positive that McLaren has is that they have two young drivers who are good, solid drivers, generational talents. And it recently came out this week that they are scrapping the papaya rules. They are no longer going to adhere to the papaya rules. And in fact, they are now going to expect to have they are now going to allow for their team to be on a more competitive edge, which will lead Norris to have to stay concentrated, stay focused, and then fight for the title championship. Now, what does Red Bull have in their in their arsenal, especially leading up to this Baku race. Number one, the most obvious, they have three-time world champion, currently best driver, Max Verstappen. That's an arguable fact, but it still is a fact that Max Verstappen is currently the best driver on the grid. He's the most vicious, the most adaptive, and has made major comebacks, not just this season. Well, not many this season, but many in the previous season. But again, it was mainly because of the car. Another thing that Red Bull has going for them, Perez is the only Formula One driver to have won the Baku race twice. So he has the track advantage because he knows this track very well, has won it twice, and knows the pitfalls and understands this track very well. So, yes, Lando can definitely win. It just depends what the team, each respective team does to support their drivers. Obviously, Red Bull has the number one driver, but will McLaren buckle down and decide that, hey, you know what, for this season, Lando's our number one?
Jimmy,
So that's what I think is going on.
hmm, I I think that's I mean, Baku is a street. I mean, we at least in the past couple. I mean, up until this season, we've known Checo as the king of the streets, right? He's won it. Like when 2022 Red Bull year when Max won everything. Checo was the guy dominating on the streets for the most part. So I think you've got that. I mean, in terms of Constructors Championship, I mean, hopefully we're expecting Checo to be competitive. Uh, but I mean, McLaren though, like I said, the focus is on McLaren. Whether or not the real question is obviously McLaren. Can they take the fight to Red Bull? Can Lando take the fight to Max? And the Constructors Championship, I think absolutely, right? We see Red Bull struggling, like, and we saw that last week. They finished sixth and eighth, or sixth and seventh. I fucking forget, right? So they were arguably the fourth best car. Mercedes had a better finish than them. Ferrari obviously went 1-4, won the race, and then McLaren and the fastest car tricked the strategy again and went 2-3. But I save that for another day. That conversation for another day. McLaren have the car, and they, for the most part, have the team structure and the they have the will to, they've got what it takes to take it to Red Bull in the Constructors Championship. With what they're doing with to Lando and Oscar in the Drivers Championship, um, it looks like they're gonna. I don't know if they're getting rid of papaya rules or what, but from the media interviews that Oscar and Lando gave today, it does and it does seem like that it, they will be prioritizing Lando because they see McLaren now sees what everyone's been seeing, I guess, for the past couple races, that Lando has a mathematical shot at winning the World Drivers' Championship, and
But also,
they're expecting they will be expecting Oscar to play that number two driver when they see fit. They're not gonna force him into that number two. You know what I mean? All the time, have Lando win every race. Like they're still gonna let them race. You know what I mean? But in the opportunity where if in those opportunities where they can capitalize on a poor performance of Max, or whether it's a DNF outside the points, or he's like just far back, they will be expecting McLaren are most likely going to be playing that team orders game and expecting Oscar to make way, and it's looking spicy because if you saw what Oscar's interview, it's at least his responses. He's not. I mean, it sounds like he's willing, but he's not happy with the whole team orders papaya rule situation.
yeah, and you know what? That's totally fair because no driver is ever gonna be happy about having to take second place or about having to take second driver. And you know what? That's what makes them all great drivers, is that they can't stand to have to let another car through. It's why they're in Formula One. But, but if you want a chance at winning, not just the Constructors' Championship, but at winning a world championship, you have to have clear set goals, clear and set um, division of labor, clear and set roles. It's the only way to win in this modern Formula One day and age. It's the only way. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, you got to let things play out the way they do naturally. But we're no longer at the beginning of the season. We're well past summer break, and like you said, only 8 races left, and that may sound like a lot, but it really isn't. So much happens in these final races, and we're coming up to some of the most difficult tracks as well. If we look at what's coming up, we have Baku this weekend, right?
Mhm.
After this, it's Singapore, which is another tough track, right? Singapore. And after Singapore, we come back to the States uh, for, I forget where the second one in the States is, but this is the
Austin.
in Austin, right? That was a pretty straightforward track. Then we go to Mexico, then we go to Brazil. Uh, Again, those three are pretty straightforward. But then we lead into the three toughest races, and I'll tell you why I say toughest, because many people hate on the Las Vegas track, but it's full of two, three, four long straights, a tight chicane, a really tight corner. Like this, there's so many overtakes that happen at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And then you move to Qatar, which is grueling on the body. And then you move to Abu Dhabi. These races aren't won unless you have the full support of the team behind you. And if you have to spend these already tough races, having to fight against your own partner, you're going to collapse. You are going to collapse. It's tough, not just physically, it's tough mentally. And if you don't have that full support of your team, like I said, you're already sweating your balls off. Sorry about my language. You're already trying to hang on with these super tight turns at 90 miles an hour. And now you have your teammate behind you pushing you, and you're like, hey, man, look, I can barely reach the guy in front of me. I need you to cool off right now and play defense. So, yes, you need the full support of your team. And McLaren has realized this. And that's why they're reevaluating the papaya rules and saying, you know what, Oscar, we love you. In fact, we have chosen you to be our number one, but you're not ready for it yet. And right now, what's more
Whoa.
important is the team.
Excuse me. Munching on dinner.
No
Oscar's
worries.
not ready. You know what? Oscar's not ready. You know what? That's a hot take. I'm not gonna say nothing. Oscar's not ready for it. I think Oscar is ready for it. I think this
I
year. I think this year, you know, with how things are looking this year, McLaren is Lando is McLaren's baby, right? They took him in, developed him as a young driver. He was part of the driver academy, you know. So I think they're gonna try to prioritize him this year. Just give him that fighting chance, right?
so I don't mean that as a dig to Oscar, right?
No, of
I
course.
I, I think he's a very strong driver, but he hasn't matured yet. And there is a little bit of bias for me, I'll admit, against Oscar, but his performance has won me over. His performances has won me over. His super Gen Z sarcasm has won me over in his interviews. But he's on the track, as good of a driver as he is, he still has plenty to learn. And there are other drivers on the track right now on the grid that have the competitive edge that comes only with experience. And Oscar will get there quick. I give him another season before he becomes a talk or he becomes a front runner in the conversation of who will win, but not yet. He doesn't have the competitive edge that comes with experience, even with all of his talent. But
Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents. You can feel free to jump in. But
Awesome.
yeah, we are gearing up for a really fun weekend. This is a really, it's a very pretty track. Baku, it's super tough, it's super hot, but there's a lot of history in Azerbaijan, and the track itself is really interesting. So there we will see some good races. I obviously at the front, but also take a look at the back. We will see right now, like as we said, what happened in the final races is that also the lower teams um, start to reevaluate themselves and prepare for the next year. I have a little bit that I'll say it now. We have someone who is coming back. They
Oh,
were a a team principal for one of the most iconic teams in the sport. They were forced to leave, unfortunately, due to bad performance. And recently, they've come back wearing new colors, brighter colors, greener colors. Do you know who I'm talking about?
if I had to ponder a guess, you're talking about Mattia Bonato
Yes,
being
sir.
appointed as the new CEO and COO of the Audi F1 project.
Yes, yes. He's currently wearing a steak t-shirt, steak Formula One t-shirt, and has been seen in the paddock for the green team, knocking elbows with Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guan Yu. And yeah, he seems to be the one that's going to be allowed to lead the Audi project 2026.
That's
That should
interesting.
be
Well,
cool.
it is. Welcome back, Mattia. Well, good to have you back on the grid. Um, Obviously this season, I mean, let's be real, stake are the laughing stock of the 2024 season.
Yes.
Pit stops, with the wheel nut issues, they're just it's so anonymous this season, right? Um, on track, they've just been awful, dog shit, for lack of a better word. Off track, drama galore as they work their way transitioning to Audi with the Audi Works team in 2026. Obviously, over the summer, former McLaren team principal Andrea Stella, who was the original lead man, was ousted alongside chairman of the board Oliver Hoffman. He was one of the corporate guys that got this project running in the first place. And in comes in Mattia Bonato as the CEO, pretty much the new lead man on this project. And they pick up Jonathan Wheatley from Red Bull, formerly Red Bull, or what is the Red Bull sporting director, and will be until the end of the year. Then goes on, whatever. Jonathan Wheatley will become the team principal in 2026 at Audi. So a lot of big pickups uh, on the operations side, and obviously Nico Hulkenberg. It will be joining next year in 2025. Which leaves one seat available as both the contracts of Valtteri and Zhou Guan Yu expire at the end of this year, which leads us perfectly into just general silly season, because silly season is not over yet, guys. Right? We still have two, two seats available or three. Honestly, don't know. There's still seats open, right?
Yeah. There still
So,
are seats available. And
let's bring up Audi first, right? Because
go ahead.
It looks like Valtteri, he might have dropped some snippets in um in the pressers in his media sessions today, maybe dropping hints that his F1 future is settled. Now, whether that's with Audi or not, or whether he's out of F1 title, we don't know. What we do know is that with Mattia, ever since Mattia came in, um, you know, he's moved up the order pretty much, right? When Andrea Stel or when Seidel was there, Valtteri Bottas was like a no go, right? Right? He was in the running. Minotto comes in, all of a sudden he's in the running, and with that, and then there's some other names as well that have been dropped. Obviously, some shockers as some shocking names as well that we I guess didn't expect. Um, Robert Schwartzman, the Ferrari Junior and um, sports car driver for the Ferrari team, was name dropped, and also McLaren Junior driver and Formula 2 front runner right now, Gabriel Bortoleto. Those are some names that have been name dropped either by Binotto directly or, chatted around the paddock, in addition to, your normal run of the rumor mill drivers like Teo Porcher, who's a Sauber junior, has been with that academy for many years now at this point. Not a lot of, like an Audi are stuck pretty much between the pool of young drivers and sticking with an experienced driver in Valtteri Bottas. Because let's be absolutely honest with ourselves, Joe cannot be in the running for that Audi seat unless he brings that much money, right? Which is right. Even then, I don't think the amount of money is going to sway Sauber or Audi, because Audi have big backing. Right, so they're not going to need the money. I don't know, just food for thought, right? Sauber Mattia Binotto dropping these random junior drivers here and there, and the fact that Sauber are pretty much stuck, right? They're the ones in the shit here between, do we stick with Valtteri or do we take on some new driver?
Yeah, so if the for those listening, if they want to recap of how the teams are looking for 2025, Red Bull will continue. Verstappen, Perez, Ferrari. The great surprise, Leclerc, Hamilton. Saw it coming. Aston Martin. No, I didn't. Aston Martin, Alonso, Stroll. Big surprise. Who would have thought Stroll was gonna stay in Formula One? I wish I had a dad like that. And Williams with Albon. Big surprise. Carlos Sainz, who I say is one of the strongest drivers on the grid right now. Top 2 strongest, not fastest. I'm not saying fastest, strongest. He is a strong driver. Anywho, that's a whole other conversation. And then we have Mercedes, Russell, and Kimi Antonelli, who will go from F2 straight into Mercedes, which is wild. McLaren, Norris, Piastri, Alpine, Gasly, and Duchen, which was a bit of a surprise. But
do it.
Ocon for the second time is kicked out of the sport he loves. That's really sad.
Whoa! Ocon's not kicked out. He's with Haas, buddy.
Oh, that's right. He moved to Haas. That's right. He moves to Haas, which means that Haas kicked out both of its drivers, which is wild. So they have Ocon and Behrman. That's right. I'm so sorry. He is not kicked out. Anywho, and we have Tsunoda, and the only 2 spots available are on Kick and Visa Cash App RB. So the question there is, if you're a driver trying to get in Formula One and both of these teams are coming to you, who would you choose? Who out of these 2 clown rodeo shows would you go to?
No. All right. Now that's actually perfect. This, you bring out V-Carb, or whatever they're called now, right? If I was a driver, let's say if I was a young driver, not affiliated with the Red Bull Academy,
right?
Obviously, Red Bull's out of the question, right? Because we know they like to prioritize their own driver academy. Or I keep saying that, but then we look at the history of the past couple of years and we see that they clearly have not given a shit about their young driver academy. So, but I save that for another day. Like, you hold out. If you're a Red Bull junior driver, you hold out the hope that you'll get a spot on either of the Red Bull owned teams, either the senior one, Red Bull Racing, or V carb.
Hopefully, before you retire.
No, if I'm any other driver, if I was any other driver, and hypothetically I was on the open market and I was stuck between the shit show that is steak sour, kick sour, that will turn into out, that might turn into the goats of motorsport that are Audi, or hold out that Red Bull actually doesn't give a shit about their junior drivers and takes an outside hire, right? I honestly, if I were me personally, I'd like the ability, I like the flexibility of working with the works team, right? That because Red Bull politics are messy, as we all know, right? Red Bull racing politics is just messy. I would honestly, if I was a driver, I'd take the risk with Sauber. Who knows? Because Audi have proven themselves in motorsport across many different not no, I was saying this, many different disciplines of motorsport, Formula E, rallying, sports cars, endurance racing. They are proven in the world of motorsport, as winners when they come in to a new motorsport. They get the ball rolling and they win. Formula One, obviously a different beast compared to rally, Formula E, pretty much any other racing series. But I would take that on, despite the shit show that Audi have bought into, just because I have hopia. I I don't want to deal with Red Bull politics because they're brutal. Like, you might join and half a season and you get kicked out, just like Nick DeVries or any other of their junior driver. Peter Gasly, Daniel Kvyat. You can name a bunch of drivers that have been swapped out mid-season for them. That pressure's always on you.
Yeah,
And if you're if you're any driver, it doesn't matter if you're young or a veteran, you don't want to go to that hell. So, but I think that brings up a good point. I mean, actually, you bring up both of those teams, like the two. I'm not gonna call V-Carb a bust because with Sonoda and Danny Rick, that shitter, they've done decent work, right? Sauber have just, please, I don't want to drink tonight. I got work but I think that leaves the question of, it's like, who takes those seats? Like, who takes those seats? And let's not forget as well, right? That Red Bull might pull another fast one, with that Red Bull second seat if Checo doesn't keep it up. So we're under the assumption, obviously, that it's the second seat at V-Carb and Kick Sauber, soon to be Audi. If I were to guess who takes those right now, I would put it to, this is gonna be a crazy prediction, actually. So I was originally gonna expect, Red Bull kicks Perez, right? Lawson goes to V-Carb. Danny Rick gets his dream return back at Red Bull Racing. Not sure if that's what he wants, given, the shit show that the RB20 is right now, but, he wants to be back at Red Bull alongside Max in a world championship winning car. That's all he's ever wanted, ever since he left, right? But my prediction, this might be crazy, right? My prediction is that they keep Checo for the rest of the year, and then obviously they let him fulfill his 2-year contract extension that he signed, right? They keep Danny Rick at a V-Carb for one more year, right? So Danny Rick takes that second V-Carb seat. As much as I hate it, I think he stays, right? Liam Lawson takes that. Red Bull loaned Liam Lawson out to State for 1 year, right? Because we know they're going to be dog shit, and they're going to be focused on 2026 when they turn into Audi. That's what they're going to do, I think, because Red Bull, Helmut Marko promised Liam Lawson a race seat for next year. Yes,
Yes.
I don't think they're going to give it to him. I think Red Bull, Christian Horner at the senior team, Red Bull and Christian Horner are happy. Were we happy with the Max Checo dynamic? I think they're happy with that dynamic right now. Even though the car's a fucking, you know, uh, it's not the dominant car it once was. They like the dynamic, so they're gonna keep them there. V Carb, they're gonna keep Yuki and Daniel. Strictly, they're gonna keep Daniel strictly for the marketing. I mean, because if you look, they changed their name from AlphaTauri to V Carb. That thing's a fucking post. That thing's a fucking uh, poster board of ads and companies left, right, and center. And Danny Rick is a marketable guy. He's a likable guy. I don't see why you get rid of him and lose any potential marketing value that you would, right? Because of that, Liam Lawson's out of his seat. Liam Lawson doesn't stick with the Red Bull family. Red Bull are now forced to find him a race seat. Yes, in F1. They're not, I don't think Liam would want to go to any other racing series, right? But that opens up a whole new thing because IndyCar's going through a shit fest right now, apparently. But we don't talk IndyCar here. So, unless it's about Logan Sargent, my boy. In that case, we'll get to that later. They strike a deal, Audi, Sauber, whatever, and Red Bull strike a deal to loan Liam for a year, right? Just so that he has the F1 seat that they promised him, right? It's not a Red Bull, but it's an F1 seat that they promised him and that he wants so badly. Obviously, it's not where he wants to be, but it's a compromise enough. And then we'll see. And then obviously we'll see how things play out in 2025. Maybe someone at Red Bull shits the bed, and they can just take Liam back. You know what I mean? Or who knows? Maybe Liam does so good at Audi or at State, that Audi is like, we actually like this guy. We want to keep him as we transition in our Audi era. And Red Bull like, okay, that will can pay you off to have him. Like, here you go, right? So that's my prediction, right? Red Bull keep the drivers that they have. VCAR keep the drivers they have. Liam Lawson's the guy that goes to fucking Audi. I think Liam
Wow.
Lawson's the guy that goes to Audi. I respectfully, as much as Valtteri, people are expecting Valtteri to remain in the seat. I think people are shocked at how far his stock has fallen since his Mercedes days, to where no one wanted to pick him up. Alpine didn't want to pick him up. Williams didn't want to pick him up. He wasn't in contention for any of the seats when driver market was still in full swing, right? And now that now that we're nearing the end of silly season, with 2 seats left. I mean, you say nearing the end, it could still blow up. It's just his name hasn't been thrown away, so that really just goes to show that people don't value Valtteri anymore as much, and that's a sad thing to see because I'm not saying he's a bad driver. I still think he is one of the best drivers on the grid. He held his own in the 5 years he was with Sir Lewis Hamilton in that rocket ship of a Mercedes, right? First year at Sauber, Alfa Romeo at the time, he was putting up decent numbers for a midfield team. It's just, that car's gotten worse and he hasn't done anything exceptional, which is unfortunate. And if you heard his media comments today, he brought up IndyCar as his plan B. So Valtteri Bottas to IndyCar, perhaps. Like I said, we don't talk IndyCar here, but at least from what I have been reading, IndyCar driver season is going crazy. So we might just have to wait and see. Who knows? 125 season is going to be crazy.
Another
Your
common concept
predictions?
that many of them take is endurance racing, and I think Valtteri could do endurance racing. I think he has the stoic, chill, fun persona that will survive in an endurance race.
Hi. I don't see him there too. I think single seaters has been his entire career, his entire racing career, right? Um, I saw I couldn't see him anywhere else. I couldn't see him in like endurance or sports car rally, even though he is a Finn. But endurance, maybe he does have the pace. You know, he does have the so we could see him. I mean, F1 drivers have succeeded in endurance racing. I can name a bunch, but we won't go there. Curious then, since I went on a ramble about who I think is going to take up the final two seats. Who do you think, Kevin, are going to take up those final two seats? I pretty much said Daniel Ricciardo and Liam Lawson, but not in the way you'd expect. So I'm
Right.
curious who you think takes that second Audi seat or he gets Sauber seat, and who takes that second V carb seat.
Yeah. So players that are getting the short end of the stick are drivers like Franco Colapinto,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
He got introduced, was for some reason given a shot, which is great because on one hand you have this young guy being able to prove himself, and he's in just one race has had a really great performance. I think he went from 18th to 12th,
Yep.
which for your first race is really good, especially in the car that he's in.
Yeah.
But so you have Logan Sargent who's out, Franco
There's,
Colapinto who will be out because they've
there's
already
no,
agreed to Carlos Sainz.
there's no,
You have Daniel Ricciardo holding on, and then you have
mm,
Kevin Magnussen also trying to find a seat somewhere, and you'll have Zhou
uh,
Guan Yu. So you have Kevin Magnussen, Daniel Ricciardo,
yep.
Zhou Guan Yu, and Bottas, four
Yeah.
drivers looking for seats. With the exception of Zhou Guan Yu, these are drivers who have their clout, right? Again, Kevin Magnussen, Ricardo, Zhou Guan Yu, and um Sargent, right? Sargent had the American backing, right? Especially with
Dude,
these new American owners. You have Kevin Magnussen, who has pedigree with a father who raced in Formula One. Daniel Ricciardo, who's won iconic races. Um, I would just mention Monaco, which is one of the most difficult to win. And then you have Bottas, who again for years was a title contender at some points. And Zhou Guan Yu, who unfortunately just hasn't been able to. He's not a bad driver
dude,
because he. It's not like he's crashing all the time, Stroll. It's not like he is constantly messing up his car, Stroll. It's not like he's just not fast.
he's
You know
on
what I mean?
Stroll, which is
Like
shame.
Zhou Guan Yu is not a bad driver. He's just not fast. But
Dude,
so and but these four drivers, they're out, with the exception of maybe Daniel Ricciardo. I don't think Magnussen has enough to pull back in. I'll say
okay.
this. You know who I'm surprised has managed to make a crazy comeback?
Who?
Nico Hulkenberg. I can't believe
Really?
Nico Hulkenberg is still has managed to find his way back into the sport to stay dude, like understand this. Nico Hulkenberg is in while Ricardo is struggling for a seat. Bottas is struggling for a seat. And these are two drivers who have won multiple Grand Prix and they're struggling to find a seat. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's valid. Nico Hulkenberg. Nico Hulkenberg. Oh my God, I just said chat. We are not live streaming this. Nico Hulkenberg has not gotten a podium. He has the active streak in F1 for most amount of races without finishing on the podium.
Yeah, without even
It's his
stepping
it's
onto
his
third.
record. That's his record. He surpassed it. I don't think anyone will be passing it unless there's like a pay driver and F1 races every week of the year, right? Um, that record I don't see it beat, which is kind of shocking. But I mean that goes to show the Hulkenberg's consistency. At least in this, I mean the performance that he's put up this year compared to KK Mag and compared to just that car. I should say that car because the Haas car is actually pretty good, right? But decent actually. He's put up some really good numbers, and I think people realize that he still has the raw speed. And this is a case, at least with Nico, I've always been of the opinion that right car, right time, Nico Hulkenberg would be a world champion.
Huh.
You can say that about any driver. Right? You can say
Yeah,
that about
that's
any
fair.
driver,
You can.
realistically, right? But just from what I've seen, obviously in his most recent stint, and then obviously because I'm bored, sometimes I watch some past races. I think right car, right time. He would be, if not a world champion, like he would be a damn good contender for it for sure. Um,
So I think Liam Lawson takes this. Well, no, because I bet Daniel Ricciardo's agent is really good, which is why he's even
exactly,
back in the sport.
that's exactly what I'm
But
saying. It's like if Danny Rick stays at VCAR, where does Liam Lawson go?
yeah, but like it's time for Liam Lawson because if they
Yeah,
don't put Liam Lawson in, he's gonna leave to another team.
yeah,
He will leave to another team, and that's not a question about loyalty. It's a question of look. If you're not gonna give me my shot, I'll find my shot elsewhere.
yeah.
So I think Red Bull might have to cut their losses with Ricardo. If anything, they could loan out him to kick Sauber. Um, but
Danny Rick
not.
to, I'm sorry, Danny Rick to Sauber.
Yeah, that you need to. They need to show Liam Lawson that they want him to be the future of. Because look, let's be honest. Red Bull right now has no future. They
Hmm.
have no future. Every look, Ferrari, young driver. And if we look at the Haas, who they have, Behrman. Uh, Alpine Alpine
Doing.
is Alpine, but Duhin, yeah. Uh, but yeah, they have Duhin. McLaren has two young drivers. They have nothing to worry about for a while. Mercedes, two young drivers, nothing to worry about for a while. You have Williams, again, relatively young drivers. They still don't have to worry about anything yet. Aston Martin,
Under.
they have to worry because they also currently have no future. And Ferrari, like I said, Behrman. So Red Bull of the big three or big four, if you want to expand it to the big four, they have no future. So if they don't, and yes, there are many, many drivers, but not many there's many drivers, but only few are capable of making it in this sport. As we've seen, it's not just about being great in Formula 2. It requires a certain skill set to survive in Formula 1. And Red Bull isn't setting themselves up for the future. And if they're not careful, they could end up like Williams. They can end up like Williams. Any team is 2 seasons away from ending. No, any team is 1 season away from ending up like Williams. And any team is 1 season away, like ending up like Red Bull. If we look at McLaren right now, they're all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, back on top. But it's not out of nowhere. They prioritized their young guy. They showed him, you know what? We're going to choose you, and it's paying dividends now. So Red Bull needs to put Lawson in that seat. And honestly, I hate to say it, but they might just have to cut their losses with Daniel Ricciardo. You chose to leave all those years ago. You're facing the consequences of it now. We wanted you, man. We wanted you in our team. You are a golden boy, our honey badger, and you left for some reason because you didn't want to compete with Max. We're so sorry that it happened, but we have to look towards the future now. So, and in terms of who takes that kick seat, I don't know, to be honest. Um,
Drop us a name, any name. Drop a
ah,
random one.
mm, You know, they might be Sargent's redemption because this
Whoa,
because I'll tell you
whoa,
what.
whoa, Sergeant to Audi.
You know what? No, but here's the thing is, it's not to Audi because Audi has already been speaking with with sites. So if anything, any driver that joins this Audi seat, this kick seat, it's just for a year because once it's officially Audi,
And
it's gonna be a completely revamped team. That's the thing.
yeah,
It's a 1 year contract. Even if you sign two, you can sign 4 years. I don't care. It's a 1 year contract. Don't lie to yourself.
but
You know what I mean? So I think, sorry, if I were Sargent, I would do my best to take that kick seat and have just one more season in F1 and try to prove myself. And maybe end
wow,
up at Haas after that or at Alpine, you know?
wow, that's bold. That is bold. I thought I shit was crazy. You
Because
think
remember,
sergeants?
remember, Formula One wants to get popular in America. And I don't know if you know this about Americans, but if you put an eagle in front of us, give us
True.
someone to root for, and we need someone to root for. And so, if not, sorry, like there's no other kind of American driver right now that's gonna be able to step up to the plate this quickly, you know. So at least with
Mm,
Sargent, you're like, yeah, you know, he at least, at least he'll get us a few points, you know.
boy, that's yep. Never mind. I take it back. I thought my prediction was bold. I mean, it's far fetched for sure, but Sargent back in F1. Don't get me wrong. I love my boy Sargent. I got to keep it real. His time in F1 is done. I think his time in
Possibly
F1 is done. I think he's pivoted. I think he's going to pivot over to IndyCar because
that.
the talk on social media apparently is that he was spotted at the IndyCar finale, and with the new Prema IndyCar entry from next year, with Logan having raced for Prema in the junior categories, I think it was F3. Um, you know, there are ties there, so there's a slim chance that he pivots over to IndyCar, which perfect for me. I'm going to an IndyCar race next year. I'm going to every IndyCar race if that's the case. I want to see my boy Logan. You know,
Hell
the
yeah.
ego that you talk about the eagle that's landed. Well, the eagle has left his nest in Formula One. The eagle has left his European nest. The eagle being Logan Sargent. If you guys are fucking don't can't tell, has left his European nest of European open seaters and Formula, junior formulas. He has made his way back home to where he belongs in the great old US of A. Logan Sargent, IndyCar with Prema 2025. Mark my words. Speaking of things that have landed, I'm going to touch back on what you brought up at the very beginning, because this is the big news of the week, of the weekend, and probably going to be the talking point heading into next season. This next season and the years to come. Aston Martin, the nest is the nest here. Adrian Newey is the eagle. Adrian Newey has landed after months and months of speculation. After announcing he would leave Red Bull, it's finally announced where he will be landing in 2025, and that is with Aston Martin. So Jeremy Clarkson was right. He wasn't house hunting in Maranello, Italy. He was hunting in Oxfordshire. So
Yeah.
once again, Jeremy Clarkson,
It's crazy
the
the way he just
the
dropped that nugget of information.
the goat, Jeremy Clarkson, the goat. Top Gear fans, you know what's up. Grand Tour fans, you know what's up. Represent. Um, which is I don't think this should have come as a much of a shock to. I mean, it is still a shock, obviously, that he went with him with Aston. I knew he went with Aston instead of a Ferrari, or the like Williams or McLaren were the other two teams that were being tossed around. But um, it is still a shock. I mean, I guess when the details coming out now, the stuff that the package that he's gotten, it is a shocker. 20 million pounds base salary for the next 5 years, plus stocks and bonus and all the other stuff. which will come out to around 30 something ish million pounds a year. And he will be joining Aston Martin from next March 2025 as their managing technical partner. So he's not the technical director, right? It's chief technical director. Um, right. Right. He's gonna be. He's got a higher title, you could say, and probably with that, the flexibility to do what he wants, with other projects as well, probably within the bigger Aston Martin umbrella group, right? So, I guess the real question is, like I said, to me, this didn't come as a shock that he joined Aston. Um, I do want to hear your thoughts, Kevin. Why Aston over the others? Why Aston? Why did he choose Aston over Ferrari? Why did he choose it over Williams, if Williams even considered it? Why him over? Why them over McLaren, if McLaren ever made an offer out to them? Why did he end up choosing Aston over the other teams that were name dropped during this period?
So, look, if we're being completely honest, the short answer, it's all about the money, money, money. It's all about the
Bro,
money, money. But I'll tell you why. Because it's all about the money and so I can start. I'll start by formula. Like if you give me a chance to yap a little bit, right? It
yeah.
For starting with what everyone thought was gonna be. Everyone thought it was gonna be Ferrari. Obviously, that was some wishful thinking and some wishful praying. But the reason we thought it was gonna be Ferrari is because we thought the argument went this way. Fred Vasseur managed to convince Hamilton to cross over and jump into a red suit. And so the only thing they would be missing is, hey, Adrian Newey, we have a 7-time world champion. We want to give him the 8th championship. And we have a young protege that Sebastian Vettel called one of the best drivers he's ever seen, right? So please, can you design us this car? And I bet you that we're going to win. To which I'm sure he was probably like, ooh, that sounds enticing. But Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll has basically an unlimited budget. So I don't think, yes, money, but not money because he's getting paid more, but because, you know, he'll kind of be being able to play like acting principal almost, He's going to be given this like top position, going to get to design a car, which is what he loves. And I'm sure he has I'm sure he has a strong relationship with Fernando Alonso, but also uh he it it's an unlimited budget to do whatever he wants, how he wants, you know?
Mm.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so
no, no.
essentially the reason why I think he went into Aston Martin over Ferrari and over McLaren and even over staying at Red Bull, because let's not lie to ourselves. Red Bull also has a lot of money, comparable to Aston Martin and comparable to Lawrence Stroll. But I think here, it's honestly the fact that Lawrence Stroll probably offered him more power and an ability to have a higher say in the decision making, and that counts for a lot because I'm sure any decision, any pitch, any advice that he maybe offered Christian Horner, there was Helmut Marko right there saying, no, I don't think so, or maybe not. So here, Adrian
Yeah.
Newey at least has a path and a channel towards one day even becoming a team principal, and what a powerhouse that would be. So I think that's not just the money, but money, freedom, and resources that Aston Martin has, and the open road that Aston Martin is. As at the end of the day, Adrian Newey is a
Good.
visionary. He's a builder, And not only does he want to build and design cars, he wants to build and design teams, and he wants to enable drivers and scuderias to reach their potential, and I'm sure he has a lot of ideas that he wants to try. And I think that Aston Martin offered him that. But what do you think? Why would he go to Aston Martin in your
Honestly, yeah, no, you covered all the bases spot on. You know, just I mean, as a visionary, I mean, he just wanted that ability to, and he wants the freedom to express himself as the visionary engineer that he is, right? Um, and I think the fact that he didn't have to relocate far, um, from because he did want to, he made it very clear that he wanted to stay in the UK, and every time Ferrari has approached him, obviously this not this past one, but every time they've approached him in the past, he's eventually turned them down because they all required him to relocate to Maranello. And even at his age, he's 60 some. He's like 65 now, 65, 66. You would think that he has the ability. You think that, he would have the freedom to want to upend his life, but if he wanted to, but it doesn't seem like he's made that decision. I think he's got his roots in the UK, and I think that's where he will want to settle. Um, Obviously, his three regrets, I suppose you can say, in his long tenured career in Formula One was not working with Sir Lewis Hamilton, not working for Ferrari, and not working with Fernando Alonso. He and there he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? With one team, he's able to achieve two of those three things: working with arguably the greatest driver of all time, and working for the Scuderia, which is a dream in and of itself with the history that they carry, right? With the other team, he accomplishes working with knocks off working with Fernando Alonso, right? Now, we don't know the details of the office. We're just two random dudes yapping. We don't know what Ferrari offered, but it must not have been enticing enough for him. Either that or his own personal values and want to stay in the UK kept him grounded and in the UK to stay with Aston Martin, which some fans on social media have taken to argue that Newey chose Aston Martin because he wanted to work with Fernando Alonso. That means Fernando Alonso was a greater driver than Lewis Hamilton. Yada yada yada. I've seen that around. It's a crazy take. Don't get me wrong. Both drivers are excellent drivers. You know, they're they're creating their own respect and don't want to put it against one or the other in terms of who's better, right? Or Newey chose this team because the driver he wants to work with over there is better than the other one. There are many other factors that come into play. I am excited though, as much as I wasn't expecting this or was expecting this. Um, it still comes as a shock, you know, but it is very fun to see, and we'll get to see a couple things. Is Newey, we know Newey is the genius. He can create a world championship winning car, but this is now probably Aston Martin's biggest test, right? Is now they've got all the pieces together, new facilities, sound technical leadership, a solid enough team principal that hasn't gotten himself into too much controversy, and might crack an owner that is willing to invest in the team, right? We now get to see, if all the pieces have come together, or will we learn a very valuable lesson that you can have all the money in the world, but you're right to invest in facilities, invest in drivers, the car, invest in infrastructure, invest in everything. You cannot buy your way to a world championship, whether that's a world drivers championship with your son at the helm, or another driver, or we'll construct the championship, right? If Newey can't If Newey, if all of Newey's work can't take Aston Martin to a world championship, then that will raise serious concerns Lawrence about Lawrence Stroll. Not his ambition. His ambition, I think, is genuine, but it will just go to show that you can put as much money into a project as you want. Doesn't matter where you put it, how you invest it, where you invest it. You cannot buy your way into winning. You cannot buy your way into a
It
win,
also might.
wherever that may be. You
I
cannot buy your
think
way into a
Lawrence
championship.
Stroll. I don't mean to jump in here. Lawrence Stroll also, he's a great dad, and like any father, he wants his kids to have a chance at fulfilling their dreams, and part of that includes letting his son drive fast cars in what everyone calls the pinnacle of motorsport. I think it's one of the reasons why maybe sometimes it was first BWT, right, Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. uh he's allowed his son to stay in Formula One as long as he has, out of love for him, but it might force him to make the decision of, hey, it's time we revisit this deal we have, and maybe your time in Formula One is has gone by, which might be painful, I imagine, but necessary.
Yeah. Who knows? Obviously, you know, now that they've gotten Adrian Newey, everyone's eyes are apparently Aston Martin's eyes are now set on even bigger targets. They really want a world championship, team at the helm. So maybe Lawrence Stroll sacrifices his son, you know, moves Lance to like Aston Martin's like World Endurance Championship team, you know, so that they can get a World Championship caliber driver in, apparently, whoever. Apparently, Max Verstappen's now being the Aston Martin are openly courting Max
No
Verstappen
surprise.
after the signing of Adrian Newey. So who knows, right? Who knows? Anything can happen, but we are looking at something very interesting in the seasons to come. Uh, you know, so we'll see. Aston Martin, congrats on picking up Adrian Newey, but now we get to see whether or not you can actually make a world championship car, or if you're going to win a valuable lesson. That money cannot buy your way
We definitely
into
will
a
see.
world championship, right? We'll see. And speaking of things that we need to see, this race, the Baku race coming up, we're gonna get predictions and then call it quits. Let's run it here, Kevin.
Me first, huh?
Your predictions for pole position. Yeah, it's already filled mine out. I can read mine off the bat. You haven't filled your shit out, so you gotta run it to me straight. I want to hear who you got on pole and who you
Who
have on
do
the
I
podium.
have on pool? All right.
Hurry up!
It's really hard not to let bias settle in, but who do I have on poll? I genuinely, I think Verstappen can take it.
Say
I
it.
think Verstappen can take it. And
Okay.
I think Verstappen, well, I'm a little torn because I'm caught between Verstappen taking first or second place. But I think Verstappen can take first. I genuinely do. And as much as I love Checo, I don't see him on the podium tomorrow, unfortunately. So that leaves 18 of the drivers. Lando's doing strong. So I see Lando coming in third. And I see Charles in second.
Third. Okay. Charles
But
second.
I
All
see
right.
Verstappen
So you have
taking
Verstappen.
pole and just
You think Verstappen's taking that shit box?
yes.
That is the RB20, or not shit box. Let me be respectful here. that broken down supercar that is the RB20. You think he's gonna drag that thing up to pole?
I do.
And convert it
Stop
into
the
a win?
cap.
I do.
Oh.
Which is, I know it's bold, but I think Red Bull has a trick up their sleeves. I think what's interesting just about when a paddock superstar leaves as opposed to a driver, drivers are locked in for the year, but Adrian Newey's gone. He's gone already. Like, he doesn't have to wait for the year to be over. He's left.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. But I think Red Bull has a few tricks up their sleeves. I think they still have a few tricks up their sleeves. And that so that means I think Verstappen will take it to pole. I think that in those first 10 laps, he'll find a way to get out of there and find a strong lead. And that'll lead to Leclerc and Lando fighting it out for second place, with Leclerc coming out on top. But what do you think? What are your predictions?
I guess I can't be delusional because I have Charles Leclerc on pole position. No shit. I think the Ferraris have an outside chance, right? We know Charles is exceedingly quick. If not him being the fastest driver, on a single lap, right? And I think he can convert a pole into a win, which is very rare. But I think he will do it this weekend. We saw how good the Ferraris were on their tires and just pace at Monza last week, which is the temple of speed in Baku, with that long straight that they got. I think it's an outside chance, but I think Leclerc can pull it off. Convert a pole, get pole first of all, and convert that pole into a win. I think I'm delusional for that. And then it's going to be a McLaren 2-3 again. Piastri ahead of Norris. I think Piastri is not going to do himself. I think Piastri is going to rightfully, as he should, defend himself. Defend his spot, try to do the best that he can for himself. If Norris wants, to get this championship, he's going to have to fight for it, right? I think. I mean, yes, McLaren are going to try to prioritize Lando wherever they can, but with me, obviously, I don't think Verstappen and Red Bull in general are going to be anywhere close to the podium. Like, they'll probably be right around where they were at Monza. So I don't think team orders need to be in effect here. I think you just let them race, like you do. Piastri is gonna hold on to whatever position whatever he can. Try to hold up Norris, defend against him, not let him pass, and it's gonna end up being a 2-3 for McLaren, because McLaren are the fastest car, right? They're just gonna find a way to butcher it, right? If they do end up on pole or whatever. If they do realistically end up first, even though I haven't said that, they're going to bottle it. We know they will. They're going to end up 2-3 again. It's going to be a repeat of... I'm yapping. It's going to be a repeat of Monza is what I'm saying, right? Minus the pole position, because I think Leclerc's going to get it. Leclerc hype train all the way. Yep. Good yap. That was a good yapping session. So that concludes this week's episode of Formula Yap. Thank you all so very much for listening. And we will be back. Yeah, we'll be back after the race. Let's see how this comes out. Until next time, everyone. Good night or good morning. Whatever time of day.
I hope you
listening.
Enjoy the race.
Take care, everyone. Bye.